Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. In this video, we're going to engage in a little critical thinking exercise. A couple topics, specifically the one that I'm most interested in delving into is the idea of, can XRP fail? And the subject was broached by none other than Galgatron in some recent tweets. So I want to run through some scenarios that he cited in which he believes it would be possible for XRP to fail. And I'll give you my thoughts on that. Now, in case anyone actually clicked on this video thinking that this would be XRP FUD, if there's any Bitcoin maximalists out there, you're gonst to be disappointed, because I am Mr. XRP Bull. And I think it's just fun to engage in some critical thinking from time to time. I enjoy it very much. Also going to cover, there's another Twitter thread in which there was somebody claiming XRP is a scam, complete scam, and they cited the reasons. And then Matt Hamilton, who is at Hammertoe on Twitter, chimed in with an awesome, fairly lengthy thread about the history of XRP, the evolution of it, and why things the way they are, which points to Ripple being a really great cheerleader, the best cheerleader in the space as it pertains to developing a healthy XRP ecosystem. So before we get going here, though, if you would please delicately tap the like button and go ahead and subscribe if you are a fan of Ripple and or XRP. Now, I got to tell you, so I've been in crypto since November of 2017, so it's over a year and a half at this point, and I discovered XRP inside of a week of jumping into all of this. You know, the first few coins I bought were the 3 that were available on Coinbase at the time. It was Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. I just bought up all 3, and just really minimal amounts just for the fun of it. It was a new asset class, and I was like, okay, I'll learn about it. Didn't really know what I was doing, and thought I'd probably end up leaving it at that, and I just got more engrossed as time passed. And I got so into it that by the end of December of 2017, so a year and a half ago, that's when I actually decided I wanted to start a YouTube channel. I had been in the space for, at that point, about a month and a half. And I actually got all jazzed up about it, and I went out and bought my Blue Yeti microphone, and I bought some video editing software, and I was ready to do it. And then I thought to myself, well, I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself. Maybe I've got some more to learn. And then the other reason I didn't launch the channel back then is because I thought, even though I'm super jazzed up about this right now, I want to see if this has staying power for me. And I was confident it would, and time has passed, and the enjoyment from this and genuine interest, it hasn't waned whatsoever. But I didn't know that since I'd only been in it a month and a half, and I thought I'd feel silly if I started a YouTube channel and then like a few weeks or months later I lost interest and then didn't persist with it. And so it wasn't until December of 2018, and you can actually see this. If you go to my About page, you'll see that I created this channel December 31st, 2017, did not post my first video until December of the following year. And at that point, I had become quite a wealth of knowledge in many ways. I'm still always learning, so I don't mean that in like a ego type of way or a braggadocious way. It's more like just a fact that I've spent way more time than the average human would, because for whatever reason I'm genuinely fascinated by XRP, cryptocurrency, and what Ripple's doing to build on top of the XRP ledger and other developers also. But yeah, so I finally decided December of 2018 I was going to go ahead and jump in. But you know how I learned most of what I do know, and the reason that I'm able to speak at length, just because almost everything I'm citing, yeah, I read some snippets from articles, of course I do, but that just helps as a primer to get the juices flowing in my mind, basically, because I generally speak off the cuff, but you know where I learned the vast majority of everything, and I don't know if this is going to sound silly, or maybe it'll sound like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense in the day and age of social media here in 2019, but I learned most of it from following people that were very well versed on the subject on Twitter. Galgatron's one of the guys that early on I learned a ton from, and so when I entered the space, I wanted to find out what the truth was, because I came in with no ideological bend whatsoever. I still don't have one. I'll never have an ideological bend. I invest in XRP based on fundamentals. That's it, really. And so what I'd do is when I'd see these debates on Twitter back and forth, I'd listen to somebody's point of view, then I'd listen to the counterpoint, and I'd see who made the best case. And then after that, because this is just a great way to get you thinking on all sorts of various different topics, just type in XRP in the search bar on Twitter and go. That's how I started. And then what I'd do is I'd seek out people that were authorities on within Ripple, like David Schwartz. He's a wealth of knowledge too. Oh my God, he's one of the co-creators of the XRP Ledger. And so I'd do that, and then I'd read all sorts of articles and just spend a ton of time researching, and that's how I came to believe what it is that I believe today. And so to me, it's all about just operating in good faith. Just I'm doing my best to share with you what I've learned and share the facts as I have learned them and as I actually see them. But I'm certainly not perfect. And if I ever get anything wrong, I'm sure it'll happen if it hasn't already happened and maybe I didn't catch it yet. If I ever say anything that just is inaccurate, first of all, it would be a genuine accident. That's my promise to you, is that if that ever happens though and I'm called out on it, luckily I have no ego, so I will be happy to admit, yes, I'm sorry. I'm a human that makes mistakes, and I'll point it out there. But I'm not coming from any sort of like tribal point of view. So for me, when I'm saying things that could go wrong for XRP, it's certainly not a FUD thing. It's just I like to engage in critical thinking, because if I'm going to put my money in this, and I am regularly, I need to be aware of all possible scenarios. And on top of that, for me, it's just genuinely entertaining. And this is just how I've learned. So I hope that you guys can appreciate the type of stuff I'm going to put out here in this particular video, because I love reading back and forth from other people. So I'm going to do some of that, and then I'm going to interject and let you know my opinions on this topic as well. So here's one to start, and this is a real short point here, but somebody named Crypto King tweeted out today that one of those other coin signups the client Ripple does and makes such progress, assuming use cases will matter at some point. And they're talking about, obviously price had declined, in particular yesterday, as people were freaking out. And so we were talking about why is this happening, this and that. And so Galgatron responded in terms of, when's price of XRP essentially going to match the utility. That's basically what they're getting at here. And he responded, at some point when they start using XRapid, it will matter. For now, the price is Play-Doh in the whale's hands. And I certainly do believe that. The crypto market as a whole, it is heavily manipulated, the best I can see. There seems to be a lot of evidence for that. I don't always know specifically when it happens. The market would be volatile regardless. The whales just add to it, from my perspective. And so that's the way that's going down. But as XRP is actually adopted in the real world, reserves will need to be held by various business entities that want to use it in order to make a buck, like market makers, like I always cite. And as more and more of that happens, there will be more liquidity. The price would go up over time. And that would result ultimately in less volatility. I believe that would happen. I don't know how long that's going to take, because you're talking about, we really need to see more of the maturation of the entire asset class for that to take place here. But here's excuse me, here's the topic that I wanted to talk about most, because I just think this is a fun one here. And so this guy tweeted out, what's his name? Wolfsburg MK1. Unpopular question. What does XRP failure look like to you? And then he tagged Galgatron and said, Galgatron would love to get your honest opinion. And Galgatron did respond. And then he has three failure scenarios, XRP failure scenarios. Here's the first one. Gets classified as a security. Okay. Now, on that point, look, the reason that he goes on to state that he thinks that it's a problem is because if it's a security, it's basically the same as like owning, as he said, IBM stock. And so all the rigmarole of the paperwork that would go on with the buying and selling associated with that, if it were actually deemed to be a security, that would be a problem. Now, a couple things on this point. It's highly unlikely that would happen, and I think that Galgatron believes that too. I believe I've read that from him. If it wasn't in this thread, I believe I've seen that from him. So he's just throwing out hypotheticals here. Galgatron's mega XRP bull for rational reasons. He is a critical thinker. This is not just emotion-based. There's not emotion-based tweets for him, and my comments are not emotion-based either. It's just I take in facts, and I try and form what I believe is the most rational opinion, utilizing the available facts to me. And so, is it a security? Probably not. I'm convinced it's not going to be deemed a security. But consider this. Here's the reason that even if, so I think I would disagree with Galgatron on this point. If it gets classified as security, that it would make the whole thing crumble. If the United States government, 'cause that's what we're talking about, if the United States, the federal government, deemed it as a security, understand that XRP is a global phenomenon. It's the world over, and U.S. federal law, it applies to the United States. It doesn't apply to other countries. And so the world would keep doing what the world wants to do. And so if the world wants to adopt the technology and utilize it as a bridge currency and doesn't see it as a security, they just see it as whether it's ultimately deemed as a currency, or who knows what will actually be classified as. We need more regulatory clarity. That's for sure. We definitely need that. But I don't see how that would happen. I don't think that it would actually slow it down. Now, it could get a little bit more hairy because you are talking about the fact that Ripple is building technology on top of the XRP ledger, and they are in San Francisco, California. And I've been outside their headquarters, actually. I got a couple of pictures in front of it with my girlfriend. That was fun. And I'm going to have to share this story with you guys. Yeah. Right after we got pictures in front of the Ripple headquarters building, we walked across the street, and then my girlfriend, Michelle, she says, "That's Brad Garlinghouse." And I look across the street, I'm like, "Who? Where?" And she's like, "That's Brad Garlinghouse right there." And I'll tell the story some other time, but yeah, it was absolutely Brad Garlinghouse walking down the street right after we left the front doors. But I'll tell that story some other time, because there's a little bit more to it. But anyway, so yeah, so since Ripple is in California, it kind of begs the question: to what degree would they be impacted? Would there be any penalties for them if they were deemed to have been selling a security, this or that? And admittedly, it could get more hairy. Now, again, I don't believe for a moment XRP is a security. I don't believe it will ever be classified as a security. But this is just a fun exercise in critical thinking. So if that happened, would it be a doomsday scenario? Galvatron thinks so, and it's not. It's an intelligent point to bring up. I respect his opinion. I'm a little bit more skeptical on that particular point, though. I'd love to hear a counterpoint. So if Galvatron ever happens to hear this, if there's another angle that I'm not thinking of, or if any of you can think of one, please drop in the comments below, because I can't think of everything. I'm not a stupid guy, but I can't think of every angle necessarily, especially on the spot. And frankly, I am tired. I got like 6 hours of sleep last night because I was up at like 2 a.m. posting a video for you guys. And I can imagine somebody's out there like, "Oh, the widow baby got 6 hours of sleep." Well, okay, fine, make fun of me, but my brain doesn't function how I want it to unless I get at least 8. So there we are, all right? That's just how it is. But anyway, so here's the second point, the second failure scenario that Galvatron threw out as a hypothetical. Ledger goes down globally, even briefly. That's a fair point to bring up. That has not happened, and we're approaching, what is it? Last I saw, I think it was 48 million ledgers closed since inception without problem. Ever since the Genesis block, there's been no problem. So my thoughts on that. You know what's pointed out, and I think Galvatron had pointed this out before. XLM, Stellar, the Lumens, their network did go down fairly recently. It was in the last few months or so, and it's been long enough that I can't remember the specifics. But Galvatron, the day it happened, like shortly after it happened, he's like, "Who's going to ever trust XLM again, this or that?" And I thought, because on the surface I thought that made a lot of sense. And it's still not like a stupid point of view, so don't think that I'm not trying to be super critical in a negative way of Galvatron. I'm just engaging in critical thinking. That is it. I just want to be super clear, and that's why I've said it like 4 times, because I respect Galvatron tremendously. I really do. And I'm still learning from him. He knows so much technical stuff I don't know, and as I learn more, I'm going to share that with you. But anyway, so his stance is that as XLM, Lumens, it went down, and and ultimately, it didn't kill it. It didn't kill the project. And I think there's clearly it was an angle that Stellar Foundation should have seen, and they acknowledged that, but they saw it as an opportunity to grow upon their existing technology and improve it. And so, would everybody literally just lose faith in XRP completely? Just like snap of the finger, like, okay, we no longer have faith in XRP. Everybody participating within the ecosystem, like MoneyGram and everybody else. If XRP Ledger went down for some unforeseen reason, would it cause that level of distrust of, first of all, the XRP Ledger and the native asset XRP? I'm a little skeptical of that. It wouldn't necessarily be a good thing. I'm not saying that. But would it actually deter people from adopting the technology? Well, first of all, it depends on the severity of which the problem is. Like, how long is it down, and what type of negative network effects were there as a result? I mean, would there be transactions that couldn't go through, especially in terms of like XRP? Let's say it's a situation where XRP is broadly adopted and banks are counting on it for their transactions. Well, here's my thoughts on that. If it actually went down, I don't suppose, especially in the short term, unless Swift literally stops existing at some point, I don't believe that XRapid, especially early on, is going to be the only means for settlement. So if they have to take a different route that's less efficient because, unfortunately, the network went down for some unforeseen reason, I think that banks would be interested in continuing to operate on top of the XRP ledger as soon as it's back up. Because understand, if you're a bank or a financial institution, you don't even have to hold XRP to enjoy the benefits of it existing, because you've got other actors within the space, like, think about this, exchanges. They're the pools of liquidity. If the network went down, would they stop allowing XRP to be traded? No. Okay, so I don't think so anyway, so you still have the pools of liquidity. And what about just market makers in general? If it went down, would that affect their business model? Well, it wouldn't be good, because they couldn't make money off the buying and selling in the short term. So if it were some tremendous outage for a long period of time, okay, maybe hypothetically somebody could get detoured and be like, screw this, I'm not participating anymore. But I don't suppose that a business would throw their entire model away if there was a temporary blip. Because with XLM, it wasn't even down for long. It was very brief. But if that happened with XRP, I don't suppose that everybody building on top of the ledger, market makers, all the exchanges, all the XRapid partners, I don't think that they'd just go away. It would have to be something so outlandish that I haven't even conceived in my mind could hypothetically happen for me to have a different opinion. So if you can think of any fun disaster scenarios, go ahead and throw them out there. What's the Armageddon scenario for XRP? Can you think of anything else as it regards to that? I don't know. And then Galvatron's third point here, doomsday scenario number 3. Ledger bug exploited to misappropriate XRP. And so I kind of read this a couple different ways. I would need clarification from what he means by misappropriate rather, because there are a couple of things, and I want to bring up one. I'm going to show you another screen in a second on this. If you're talking about potentially there being misappropriated through a double spend, as in XRP can be created on the ledger, which it cannot be, and I'm going to run through that real quick, but that could be one way. And the other way is what? It's somehow, it's what, sent somewhere it's not supposed to go. I'm not completely sure exactly what he meant on that, but the way I read it just got me thinking along the lines of XRP just getting double spent. But I'm not sure if that's what he means. He may mean something else, and especially with the consensus mechanism, I don't even know what that would look like. How would that possibly happen to have an actual double spend? And so I don't see that happening, but I want to run through that too real quick, because if you guys haven't seen the technical reason for this, this is from David Schwartz, Ripple CTO, and he is one of the co-creators, one of the original architects of the XRP ledger itself. And so he tweeted this out, and this was on November 26, 2017, and there's a screen capture here with his full thoughts on this that he wrote. And it states the following. There was never any way to create additional XRP. 100 billion XRP exist in the Genesis ledger, and there is no way to create any more. There never was. However, there was an emergent property of the system, that is, there wasn't one line of code that said you may not create XRP. There simply wasn't any way to do that. That XRP must not be created was a system invariant, but there was always some risk that some bug or defect might permit someone to violate system invariance. Since it's always better to be able to point to the line of code that says you can't do something than rely on people not being able to find any way to do it, Ripple made significant improvements in the security of the ledger. We added an invariant checker, and this is very important here, so check out this last little part here. And it states, all transactions are executed in a scratch pad. Before the results are applied to the public ledger, every server checks the scratch pad to ensure that no invariants are violated. If they are, the transactions fail with a specific error code that would, we hope, prompt an investigation into what happened. And I can't read this because there's a little overlay. One second here. Okay, here's the last part. That amendment has since been enabled, so now we can point to the specific line of code that makes XRP creation impossible. And so even if that's not exactly what Galvatron meant, it's worth pointing out regardless. But you know, another thing that he could have simply meant for that, and this is like more of a general thing, but if there is some sort of bug on the code, and perhaps it is more likely that he meant this, that you could move existing XRP, even if it wasn't a bug to create it, but just a bug to somehow get in, and whether it's hijack it from wallets or whatever it may be, that could be a serious fatal flaw. And David Schwartz has been open and honest about this. He's a very open guy, very transparent. You can just tell by the way he carries himself, the way he speaks, that he's all about what is actually like he's just seeking the truth, and he's very open in how he feels about crypto, Ripple, and XRP. Even though he's an employee, you can get it. Like, because there are ways that he probably could word some stuff stronger in defense of XRP or Ripple, but I really value him and appreciate the way he's super transparent. And he has acknowledged in the past, I read it some time ago, but he acknowledged that one of the fears is that there could be some sort of bug that has not yet been discovered. So as it pertains, like Ripple succeeding utilizing XRP as their position as a bridge currency, and he just expressed the fear that what if there is something that we missed, and then it just made everything crumbling down. Now, the good news is it's been around since, when was XRP created? Was it 2012? I can't remember off the top of my head for some reason now. But it's been around forever, and like I said, over 48 million ledgers closed, no issues whatsoever. So, given that there's no problem, good luck. If somebody hasn't thought of something by now, I don't know that there is anything, because there's so many anti-XRP people. I'm sure all sorts of hackers out there have been going through code trying to find ways to find holes within the cryptography or the software itself. So whatever, but maybe that's more likely what Galgatron meant. And if there is something like that, and you could then move XRP, that out of the three scenarios he cited, if that's what he was intending to get out, that's the one that I think would be most deadly, and I would agree with him. Yeah, that would probably be the end of XRP. And if that's the case, there could be faith lost in it, especially if it can't be patched. So it could lead to some sort of disaster scenario, and then in which case, who knows, maybe Ripple would have to, I don't know, or some entity would fill the void, trying to do essentially the same thing. But man, how do you even do that? Because you're talking about a loss of faith in the technology as a whole within the banking sector. That's what I think it would look like. So who knows? But again, I don't see any of these things happening. This, again, is just a fun critical thinking exercise. But if you can think of any other more deadly ways just for the fun topic to discuss, like I'm definitely all about thinking through it. It's just a fascinating thing for me. But next thing here I wanted to cover, this is from this is a tweet a thread back and forth between Matt Hamilton and somebody else. And this guy's name, what's the other guy's name? Cronus, @Cronus1 with a 0 as an O. And he tweeted out, so far XRP is very linked to Ripple. Take away XRP and Ripple would be way different now. Take away Ripple and XRP would be way different. Ripple is more than holder. It is distributor and owner. Fact. And then Matt Hamilton responds, it was a pretty damn good strategy, wasn't it? And seems to be working out very well. But you wish you'd thought of it. Never mind, you can still create your own token if you want. You'll be rich, too. Plenty of thin air to go around. And have you heard this argument? I love this argument from Bitcoin maximalists. They're like, yeah, well, Bitcoin, it's created using proof of work, and XRP was just created out of thin air. And so, at Matt's point, plenty of thin air to go around, yes. David Schwartz said something, what was the exact line? It was something like, yes, of course, XRP was created out of thin air. Cryptocurrencies do not exist in nature, so like they had to be created. And so, actually, upon the inception of Bitcoin, that's when all of the Bitcoin was created. And really, mining is more so just the distribution mechanism. So it was created out of thin air, and then you have to solve a puzzle to get access to it. That's pretty much what it is. And you can literally copy the XRP ledger and start your own and call it something else. Like I could do it, and I could call it Moon Lambo coin. I could literally do that. And it's not just going to magically have market value. And so with this whole concept of printing stuff out of thin air, it doesn't ring true to me. It seems disingenuous if that's an argument against XRP or any cryptocurrency for that matter, because once it's created, people have to see actual adoption, or if they're not going to have, they want a faith to put their money into it now. XRP is what it is, and if somebody duplicated it and were exactly the same, I wouldn't put my money in, because why would I have faith in it? And people are not stupid. They're going to respond appropriately with their money. Even as hairy a situation as crypto is, with it being such a nascent asset class, people are still trying to figure this out, and nobody knows exactly how things are going to pan out. But good luck starting a coin now like that. Just copy XRP. Go ahead and do it, and see if you'll be rich. Go ahead and give it a whirl. I don't think you're going to be. It's a fairly ridiculous concept in my mind. And so Cronus responded here, well, every Ponzi scheme is a good strategy until it falls apart. I know that psychopaths will not feel sorry. And Matt responds, I agree. Good job, XRP is not a Ponzi scheme then, isn't it? Unlike Bitcoin, it doesn't require a constant stream of new investors paying in to secure the network. Very good point, is it not? Thank God XRP does not utilize mining as a mechanism to solve the double spend problem. It uses the consensus mechanism. Anyway, so Cronus responds, it requires constant stream of new investors to build Spring, create war stash, pay salaries via permatic sale of XRP. It does not matter how you paint cat. That's got to be a typo of some sort, but I think I got the gist of what he's saying there. And by the way, understand also, it's just call it a nuance if you will, but Ripple did not create XRP. XRP was created, and then Ripple, the company, was created, and they were originally called OpenCoin. Anyway, Matt Hamilton responded. Right, so you can see that there's a very big difference between people investing into the ecosystem in order to fund and build new and useful things versus having to keep piling money in just to keep the network running. All right, and so, and I'll end it there. This last tweet from Cronus, it's the last one, and it's somewhat incoherent. It's not worth me wasting your time with it. Sorry. No offense to Cronus. I'm sure he's not listening, but it didn't make sense. So anyway, that's where we're at on that. And so I'll tell you what, I am super appreciative of Ripple doing what they're doing to foster a healthy XRP ecosystem, and there is no other company within the world of cryptocurrency, digital assets, blockchain. There's no other company operating on the scale of Ripple and having the kind of success that they're having, really building things out. And that gives me faith as an XRP investor, even though they're not, of course, they're not the only developer. There are all sorts of other developers. That also gives me faith that some of these concepts are going to get traction. They're going to find success. I fully expect that some of the developers building on top of XRP, some of the projects just won't pan out. But I like that they're trying stuff, and I like that they're in creative mode. They're trying to come up with stuff. They're trying new things with this new technology that didn't exist a decade ago, you know. And so I'm all on board, and that's why another reason I want to stay on top of this, because if anything does change, like I said in recent videos, like I will be the first one to tell you if something goes wrong, because I'm going to be like, hey guys, I'm jumping ship, see you later, and my channel's done. So, you know, I'd let you know. Now, I don't foresee that happening, but for me, it's all about the facts, it's all about the fundamentals, and as long as I'm seeing real-world adoption, my firm belief is that people will value that more and more over time, and people will parse out which coins are more important and have staying power over time. All right, next thread here. And this is cool. If you guys aren't aware of what I'm about to share with you, Matt Hamilton, I learned some stuff from him, and actually he did an interview with Bitcoin Ben. It was like a 2-hour interview, and I actually haven't quite finished it yet, but it was like, I don't know, it was like a month or two ago. It was really good stuff. Some of what he covered in that, he covered in this, and so I want to read through this with you because I found it genuinely fascinating. He was talking about how IOUs can be issued on the XRP ledger, and within the interview, I don't think he covered it in this, but he was talking about how there's a company that buys and sells gold issuing IOUs on the XRP ledger, and I don't know anything further about that, but I want to learn more about it. I've been meaning to Google that actually and research it and find more about it, so when I do, I'll be happy to share that with you. But see, for me, like, I've been in this for a year and a half. There is so much still for me to learn. I'm learning all the time, and I like sharing what I learn, so I hope you guys enjoy this stuff like I do. But anyway, so here's the fudster out here, Henrik Anderson. I think XRP is a scam. So here's what he tweeted out. XRP might be the biggest scam out there. It makes no sense, even in crypto investment logic. So fired up to see how that circle jerk goes out. They just need to keep it going until Tether implodes. I can only track one cult at a time. So in case you didn't know, if you're a fan of XRP just as I am, what's up, cult brother or sister? Like, what the... Oh my God! So I think he's drinking the Kool-Aid. Jesus freaking, a cult? Jesus Christ! Like we're just investing in a groundbreaking technology. It's a digital asset. Like what? What are you talking about? Anyway, so then there's a guy named FlowS. He responded, "Why is it the biggest scam out there? I think it's still the most reasonable, which of course doesn't say much in a snake oil market." Okay, point taken. I mean, there's a lot of bad actors in the crypto space. Okay, so then Henrik responds to that. I would need to look at my research, but I've lulled, which I think is, I think that means he laughed out louded at how the tokens were a gift in such matters. Also, I don't exactly understand how these tokens are supposed to act as central bank currency for global transactions and also go to the moon all the time. The biggest isn't about the impact, though, just how neatly it's packaged in a single company. Could also be one heck of a success story if they keep the money they are making and not end up in jail. And then his next tweet says, I think my impression of XRP being a scam is based on that early history, and I don't see how XRP is even useful for all the actual Ripple products. It has just seemed to me like they're trying really hard to figure out some use for the token that makes them all their money. Okay, so let me dissect this a little bit here. So he said that he thinks his impression of XRP being a scam is based on that early history, and I don't see how XRP is even useful. Okay, so literally right there, he's claiming ignorance, as in, and I mean that not as pejorative, but by definition, he means he doesn't know. So what's happened here is this human has formed an opinion about Ripple and XRP without doing research to a satisfactory degree to form a reasonable opinion on the topic. And this is something that humans do just in general in life. I've been guilty of it in the past, but once I recognize it as a flaw in humans in general, that's just my opinion, I do my very best to not engage in it. And so what do I mean by that? If somebody presents something to me or asks me a question and it's something on which I am not educated, and if somebody asks me my opinion and they even if they share their opinion with me first, my response will be, if they're asking my opinion, I'll say, okay, that's good information, thank you for sharing that with me. I don't have an opinion because I'd like to hear the opposing side's view before forming an opinion. And sometimes my point in saying that is it's okay to say I don't know. That sometimes it's a perfectly valid answer, and it doesn't mean you're stupid. It means that you're being smart and taking the time to recognize, hey, I need to do some research before I have an opinion and share that with other people, because you could brainwash some people. You don't want to do that. You can mislead people, lead them astray. That's bad. I don't like to do that. That's how I treat the new concepts in my life in general. And so that's not what he did here. He formed an opinion after minimal amount of understanding, and then that's that. And then sometimes, and this is another thing that people do, is once they're pointed out to be wrong, people have so much pride that they don't want to admit they're wrong, even though everyone around them in the room can see that person is being stubborn and just not admitting that they made a mistake. And so I just don't want to live my life like that. That's why I'm more like, hey, I admit it, okay, I just want to be a humble dude, and if I'm wrong about something, I'm just going to admit it and say, okay, sorry, I was wrong, here's what it actually was. Could more people please just be like that? Because then we wouldn't have threads like this. Although then again, I'd have less YouTube content, so maybe I do like this. But anyway, so but as far as the use of the token, I mean, obviously, well, okay, it's true, it's not needed for XCurrent, the messaging system, but what about XRapid? And he doesn't even know that. It can be used as a bridge currency. And so then this Flow guy says, early history, it's one of the oldest and most unique protocols out there. And it was so different to Bitcoin back then that even Satoshi said XRP would be one of the most interesting ideas. Bitcoiners tend to forget that in their hate. You know what else they tend to forget is that the people that created XRP, they were early Bitcoiners. They weren't anti-Bitcoin, they just wanted to make something that was conceptually similar to a certain degree, but better. They solved so many of the problems early on that Bitcoin faced in terms of scalability, energy efficiency, and cost per transaction. So it's astonishing to me. And so, and then Matt Hamilton, he jumped in down here, and this is the thread, so I'm going to read this to you, and I'll jump in anywhere I feel it makes sense to chime in with ancillary information that I'm aware of. But anyway, so you'll find this fascinating, though. If you're unaware of this, this has to do with the history and like the full progression. And I think a lot of people are unaware of this, so this is good information. But here's the beginning of the tweet thread. The original Ripple project was started a few years before Bitcoin by a guy called Ryan Fugger. It was a peer-to-peer credit system that tracked who owned who. I.e., Alice lends Bob $5 and Bob lends Charlie $5. Then Charlie can settle with Alice. The slogan was, be your own banker. And mind you, by the way, this is me now, this was all before Bitcoin existed, before blockchain, and so, the movement of a, money within a cashless system without a counterparty, which is Bitcoin, didn't exist, okay? But this is a somewhat different concept, but it grew into something else ultimately. And then Matt continues. Bitcoin came along and showed you how to create a decentralized currency with no central authority needed to transact. Jed McCaleb saw an opportunity to create something more efficient than Bitcoin that did away with mining. He got together with David Schwartz, Arthur Brito, and Chris Larson, and they created what we now know as the XRP ledger, and in agreement with Fugger, took on the name Ripple and incorporated a lot of the original ideas into the XRP ledger. Only now it had a token that could be used as a bridge. Larson had come from creating Prosper, a big peer-to-peer lending system to rival the banks, and so had ideal experience with this, having just gone toe-to-toe with the SEC. Their original company, OpenCoin, was then, confusingly, renamed to Ripple Labs and later just Ripple. And admittedly, that is a little bit confusing, but nonetheless, that's part of the history. And he continues. Much of the peer-to-peer credit system is still in the XRP ledger, as you can issue IOUs on the ledger and transfer/trade them on the built-in decentralized exchange. There were early projects that used this to trade skills. For example, 1 hour of lawn mowing for 2 hours of babysitting. Ripple, the company, was formed to try and solve the cross-border payment problems. Original plan was to get each bank to issue an IOU, a stablecoin, on the XRP ledger. But feedback from the banks was they didn't want counterparty risk of an IOU. And that's the fundamental problem of stablecoins, as we well know, and this is me talking now. That's why XRP is now positioned to do what it does. There's no counterparty, nobody owns it, nobody has any sort of upper hand, because that's the reason that there are all these Nostra Voce accounts all over the world. It's because, you know, trust is required, and you have to have faith in all sorts of other currencies around the planet. You have to trust all sorts of people, and so having a stablecoin, all that really does is create some more of the friction today. And so Ripple obviously realizes that, and that's not the route that they went. Anyway, Matt continues. So they they switched back a few years back and created a product called XRapid that doesn't use IOUs and buys and sells XRP on demand on exchanges at each end of the cross-border payment. In the process, they found how bad the underlying payment messaging SWIFT systems are. And so had to fix that first, so created a product called XCurrent. This is a payment messaging system. In developing XCurrent, they also developed a protocol called Interledger Protocol, ILP, that is to transfer value between different blockchains and ledgers. This tech is now a W3C standard, and that's World Wide Web Consortium, by the way, and they're the ones that set the standards for the internet. And I'm actually not real clear on who made them God as far as that goes, but yeah, the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C. So anyway, this tech is now a W3C standard and starting to be used in many places. Example, as part of the payment request W3C API that is currently in all major web browsers. Also by companies like Coil that are building a content monetization platform. Think Medium plus payments that allows transparent streaming payments from browser to content creator in real time. This uses XRP underneath, as XRP is the only widely adopted production-ready cryptocurrency that can handle micropayments at this scale. But using ILP, it can settle in any currency. Example, Stronghold USD. Then he writes a very quick tour, but hopefully that helps. And I think that's very helpful because a lot of people don't really know just how far back the story goes. And that's basically a truncated version of what happened, but I think it's sufficiently detailed nonetheless. And I hope you guys found that fascinating because I did too. And I tell you, once I finish watching that interview I was citing earlier with Matt Hamilton and Bitcoin Ben, I'll have to share a link with you guys as soon as I go back to it. Anyway, I think I watched maybe about half of it or so. Very genuinely interesting. So, and maybe I'll have some additional thoughts to share with you after I learn some more on that. But Matt Hamilton, he's one of these guys too that, especially early on, I learned a ton from him as well. So it's really cool. It's just neat, and that's why, like, to me, I really enjoy being a participant within the XRP ecosystem. And my genuine hope is that what I've learned, I can share with additional people. Hopefully, you can learn something too, and I can learn from you. But anything that I'm able to share with you, I hope that you can just like spread that out to even more people. Just lay facts on people. That's what I'm always searching for, is just the truth, frankly, as it pertains to crypto, XRP, what Ripple's doing, all that good stuff. All right, and next, oh yeah, actually I did want to cite this. I was watching the Digital Asset Investor. I was listening to one, well, I should say listening. Pretty much what I say I'm watching, pretty much the way I treat like every XRP YouTuber when I'm listening to them. Basically, I'm driving or walking my dog or taking care of chores or whatever. So I got headphones in most of the time. If I'm driving, it just goes through the Bluetooth system. But anyway, so I was listening to the Digital Asset Investor the other day, and he was talking about the Fed chair here. What's his name? Jerome Powell, I believe. And he was talking about how this guy, he was like railing against the Facebook's coin Libra, basically, and had a bunch of reasons. I haven't covered that. I don't know if I will. I don't know if it's by the time I would get to it, it's too late, and I had other stuff I want to cover within the last day or two. But anyway, Digital Asset Investors talking about how this guy, how it was so funny to him. He's got this coffee cup, and it's got what appears to be the XRP logo, and it's not the XRP logo, but it's black. It's like there's this one black little like arch-looking thing, sort of, and it's out of like all the little logos on his cup. There's just one that's black, and so he pointed that out. And I gotta admit, when you look at it when it's zoomed away, it kind of looks like that, and it's just kind of, it doesn't mean anything, of course, but it's just kind of funny that when he's talking about cryptocurrencies here, Facebook and Libra, that kind of popped up there and caught. And I could see why it caught the eye. Like, it does kind of look like it. But you know what the XRP logo more so makes me think of? I think I may have said this like one other time, but it looks to me like the Under Armour logo. And if you don't know what that is, just Google it. And on topic of logos, and I said this before too, you know what the Coil logo looks like to me? It looks like the C in Chick-fil-A, which I think is hilarious. But seriously, Google Coil, look at their logo, look at Chick-fil-A, tell me that letter C doesn't look the same. I'm just saying. I love Coil, I love Ripple, I'm just saying. But last piece I want to cover, I want to end on a little lighthearted note here, and there's an XRP community member named Stubby, and he tweeted this out the other day, as XRP was tanking down to, like, at the time it was 35 cents, and when I checked earlier, I don't know, within the last few hours, like 33 cents, so it went a little lower, but that's not why I'm pulling this up. But he tweeted this out. He's got a screen capture of this chart, and it's just, you can see XRP going down here. And then he wrote, "Called it!" exclamation point. Like, he called the chart, and he knew the drop was coming. And then he writes, "Just kidding, I have no idea what's going on." It just made me laugh, so I was like, okay, that'll be a fun way to end the video. That's it. Because you always see people saying "called it" the one time they get a call out of like 20 calls, right? And so I was like, you called the negative, and then I was like, oh yeah, he doesn't know either. No. I don't either. I don't make price predictions, man. But I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Thank you so much for watching.